Current state today, I don't like bouncing over things, so I'll be very cut to the chase. My task as project manager is to foster service provider relationships. I've got hands on telephone, I've talked to Evelyn many times. I've talked to every provider. I've talked to John Nellis about the opportunities that this network brings. This is a longer process. Providers need to understand the value of this network, as well as the community. We've got to work through all these scenarios, but in parallel, this is a moot point if we don't get this fiber in the ground, get these buildings lit. That's the challenge we have. And we've got 29, 30 months to get this fiber in the ground. I don't think it's a hard process to get us through these agreements. Yes, there would be an entity to manage the money. Fantastic, great, it has to be there. That provides auditing, compliance, and governance for all entities. That's standard. The grant requires it. The responsibilities for SCABC, A2D is not a construction plan. I mean, not a government authority. That's not our lane. We'll provide guidance, absolutely. It's not our lane. But A2D will make sure the quality assurance, because our field inspectors will be responsible for how deep that fiber goes and make sure it's installed right. Because I don't think Hamel's going to trust this network if it's not installed right. Which means this network doesn't mean anything if my providers don't come on board to support this network.
Can I follow up?
Yes, sir.
If the cities or counties say, hey, we're getting great service, we don't want to sign on. I mean, what, you understand what I'm saying? That was asked by me. That was asked of me by the mayor of Atmore. He said, look, I got Frontier and I got this and I got that. And he said, I don't know that I want another service provider. I don't know that I want another authority I got to manage or deal with it. So how do we answer that? I mean, because I realize that some people don't want new things. They like what they got and they don't want to deal with it.
It's an honest and flavorful approach. It's answering that question this way. Who's out and asking that exact question? What if the city, county says, we're fine where we are? Broadband authority, you've got an asset. It's going to get fees and services. Our majority of our network is built along the Georgia State route. Backbone. I've got people like level 3 that said, I need to reduce my cost to go from Montgomery to Mobile. This network has the ability to deliver a terabyte across the backbone. That's revenue. That creates jobs. Whether that county wants to inherently take their franchise fees, there will be an escrow account. Sometimes it takes counties and cities longer to become a dollar. We understand that. This grant process was 45 days. There is no way in the world I could have got to every city and county in 45 days. Just would never happen. But this grant process won't come around again. This window's closing. And this is just infrastructure. How we work out all the components and agreements, that's the piece where we have more time.
Can I ask a question about this grant process? I mean, you mentioned timeline. Could you go over at a high level what are the timeline requirements y'all got? I mean, we filed for some of the broadband stimulus money. We're not approved. I know that can't move the timeline in that application process, and it's a fairly aggressive timeline. So, the irrespective of kind of a lot of the stuff we talked about, money's been awarded, and it'd be great to see it put to good use in this part of Alabama. So, but could you touch on the timeline?
Mr. Brown, and I'm also Mr. Mills. If it's okay with you, we have the timeline about third on the agenda.
Right.
If that's okay, we'll go ahead and cover that in the list on the agenda. Yeah, absolutely. We definitely will get to that. Okay, we're going to close out this. We'll have one more question, and then I would like for you to clarify one thing about the diagram. And I think you're not even quite finished with the diagram, but we are not even through section 1 of our conversation yet, and we are 45 minutes into, or an hour and 50 minutes into this. So we definitely want to answer everyone's question. Absolutely. We'll try to keep it on the track of the agenda so that we can move through it in a timely manner. Jessica, you have a question?
This is just kind of piggybacking off of that comment. I know the elected officials, the city, county, government officials, they have an obligation to their existing companies that are already providing service, that have already made that investment into their communities. And these are the questions I've got. Are for those that have already been there for years and years, providing service to these communities? Is there something that SCABC is going to be able to do for those folks that have already been generating revenue, generating jobs, and providing educational resources to the community?
What they asked me, I want to simplify franchise agreement so everyone in here, because if you've never been in the negotiation of a franchise agreement, you might not understand what all that means. You've heard that term. But anytime that a service provider, doesn't matter what kind, telephone company, cable company, internet company, if they use what's called a public right-of-way or public easement to put equipment in, then they have to pay a fee that we normally call a franchise fee because they're sitting in a publicly owned space. So if there's something that comes through a particular county or city based on the design that's planned on this network, and that city or that county will get a franchise fee. Whether it goes in the escrow account and all that, that's going to be negotiated. But you cannot use a public space without paying a franchise fee. So you won't lose anything from the franchise fee. From the standpoint of protection of existing incumbents, one of the base designs of this and questions from the NTIA all throughout the process was a negotiation with the current incumbents. As the SCABC stands up, I'm quite positive since they're going to have the interest of their members. And so that if you want if a particular company is inside of your county and you want that county protected, join the SCABC, bring that up onto the board, which means that they would then step forward and take I guess, possession of that negotiation, if you will, for the interest of that incumbent, so that all of that information of how this can best be used by them or how they protect themselves and all of those things. The goal is get involved into the process, because if you're on the outside, you're just going to be asking questions. But if you come into the process, then you're helping to guide the thing along. So that was what was presented during the grant. That's what's been discussed on call every week is community involvement. It's called a comprehensive community infrastructure because they want everybody involved. And so I'm just really happy to see everyone here so that you begin to get involved. And as you said, the SCABC is the voice from the community standpoint, so you really need to start getting involved with the SCABC as quickly as possible. And I think Mr. Wood said he would like to see either resolutions or intent for resolutions by the 30th, so they understand what all the members will be, and then what the outside members were still affected by the grant will be, so that they can begin to develop everything that they need to develop for them. If everybody's a member, it's going to be straightforward because you're involved. If you're not, then you're going to have to develop a second way because someone is going to be affected, but they're not a member. So the goal is for everybody to be a member. So we are here to try to encourage that.
Yes, one question, if you don't mind, I think it fits your main right at this moment. Wilcox County, I was talking to a commissioner in Wilcox County just the other day. He said, wow, Camden, we got decent infrastructure here, but we can't get the signals in other parts of the county. If Wilcox County comes on board and they want what you plan to go in Camden to actually go to outsource service, are there going to be changes in the construction plan sufficient to fit the needs of those counties as dictated by the leadership and by, that's known by their economic development components and other, some cities have 10-year plans in place. Would it be modified to fit those kind of aspects?
Well,
I know.
The answer is no. There will not be modifications to design.
I mean, where it's going to go.
Right, where it's going to go.
Wow.
Because it's from a
Compliance issue from the federal government.
Right, we had to remember the environmental assessment documentation. We had to walk off 2,200 miles of territory where we said we're going to place fiber. If there's a change to that design, then that equates to a change in the environmental assessment documentation, which would further delay the approval of the project. Okay?
So what came first, the chicken? I mean, it's almost.
No, there's no what came first. What came first was going into these 8 counties was not based on a whim. Right?
I consider this.
Right.
Needs based.
It was based on needs. So, and we said, and Dr. Coleman, say something.
I was going to say about how businesses said the track or the route of the network, it was specifically dictated by the grant application, like itself, direct requirements, all the way down from census tract, census block, and physical, the need. That's how they were chosen. And I was a part of that 22-mile walk.
Exactly.
Yeah, to determine, and verify the actual survey provided separate areas. So the team itself technically did not define the actual route of the network. It was dictated by census data.
That's just simply how NSP works. I mean, you know, I just, in another venue, I just did a housing thing. And you got census tracts, blocks, and you can't map outside of those tracts. I mean, in the county that I was working, they had 17 that had to be their goal, their score. And a 16.99 wouldn't work. You had to have a map for the 17.
But that's for federal dollars. What about the private dollars? Can they do anything with private dollars different?
It's a match to that, so it's
Trying to make sure you do all that.
Yes, sir.
Can I make a point here? I think it's important to realize that what we're trying to do is to give access to people who have historically not had access.
Right.
And competition oftentimes do, because it reduces costs to the people. So that's not, so the monopoly is what we're trying to get away from where we can, so that people can have options. And those options are not just relegated to the end user, but also the ISPs as well. And so what we're doing is expanding options for everybody to include ISPs. I think if we stay focused there, then we don't have to get caught up with who will, who won't. The ISP will see the benefit if there's a benefit. If they don't, they won't.
And we also remind you of this is a start. This will begin to look at the process. The process network expandable. Those people are not included now. There are plans from SCABC standpoint to include the estimate that they have related as soon as possible. So nobody's actually excluded.
Okay. One question that I guess a lot that I think some people in the audience may have a question of, so I'll ask it, is that you were mentioning the for-profit that may be established or conversation is taking place now about creating this or negotiating with somebody to handle these ISP fees. What was written into the grant application that ETIA approved, how much evolving of the grant can continue to take place when a grant was approved? I'm asked that a lot because people hear this is changing, this is being developed, this piece is being negotiated right now. And people say, well, what was written into the grant? So can you explain how much flexibility do the project partners have of evolving this from what was approved?
Well, this was a 2-year journey from soup to nuts, meaning we spent about 2 years preparing for this project. We provided a grant application for round 1, which was back, 2009. And it was a multi-state, multi-jurisdictional grant. And too big, too cumbersome to manage, was not approved. So we took the more rifle approach and looked at where can we make the most impact in the shortest period of time with the amount of money that's available. So what we did was we focused on via census tracts and via data that we pulled from surveys. We focused on the platform. And we said early on in the project that that's our focus. We're going into the 8 counties in South Central Alabama with a design that we think will bring an increased e-commerce, increased jobs, bring more opportunities to the deprived areas of South Central Alabama. So that was our main focus. There were a lot of different things, paradigms and ideas that were also brought